What's up guys, welcome back to Slice and welcome back to the origin of food. Today we are looking at the history and the authentic recipe for jerk chicken. You hear that? Kids just screaming. Jerk chicken is one of those things where authentically the recipe was beautiful. It had a really amazing rich history and over time I think people have kind of missed out on it. They just sort of put chicken in the oven, slap some reggae sauce on top and call it a day. And really, if you understand the history behind it, you appreciate the food a lot more. You appreciate the culture, the Jamaican culture, and yeah, all in all, it will be a lot better. Now, the recipes for jerk chicken, there's not really one specific recipe for jerk chicken, but unanimously, the two ingredients which have to be in jerk chicken are allspice or what's the word? Pimento, which are these berries at national land in Jamaica, and also Scotch bonnet. These two are the most important things. Around that, you can kind of build it and sort of play around with different flavors, but the most important things that have to be in jerk chicken are the pimento and the Scotch bonnet. So when the African slaves were brought over to Jamaica and they were enslaved and made to work on plantations, quite a lot of them actually escaped slavery and they ran away to the Jamaican Blue Mountains. And they are known as Maroons. So the Maroons were actually taught by the Arawak the sort of native ingredients to Jamaica, the pimento and the Scotch bonnet. And the African slaves, well, the Maroons, combined that with their knowledge of smoking meat and thus creates jerk chicken. The important thing about this is that jerk chicken has to be smoked. You can't cook it in an oven, that's not jerk chicken. You might call it jerk flavored chicken. The flavor is inspired by Jamaican cooking, but you can't call it jerk chicken. Jerk chicken has to be smoked. The reason why they smoked it actually was because it's an act of preservation. So when they smoked it, it creates this like layer around it which preserved it for a few days. So when they were on the run from the British sort of owners, they didn't want to be caught. They couldn't be lighting fires which would have drawn attention, and so jerk chicken was actually essential to their survival. So it's really important that we try and make these recipes as authentic as they were when they first came out. It just does justice to the culture really. So if we want to try different recipes from different cultures, we have to kind of stay authentic as much as possible, if that makes sense. So I'm going to start off with this recipe simply just taking the tops off our Scotch bonnet. I'm just going to go ahead and cut. You can take the seeds out if you want. I don't think there's much point because Scotch bonnet is meant to be spicy. So I'm just going to roughly chop this into like sort of rough pieces. It's all going to go in a pestle and mortar anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much. So other ingredients I've got, yeah, just roughly chopped. Other ingredients I've got some thyme. Thyme is an interesting one because a lot of people think that thyme is quite a British thing, a British ingredient, but actually it's very Jamaican. Actually, one of my good friends who I went to culinary school with, he's half Indian, half Jamaican, and he always used to carry around a bit of thyme in his pocket. And I was used to be confused by that, and he goes, you know, it's a very Jamaican thing to have thyme in like everything. So he would often go around putting thyme in lots of dishes. And so yeah, it's quite interesting, something that I learned really, and something that I hope you guys do too, that thyme it's seen as quite a classically British thing, but it's actually quite Jamaican. So we're going to put some thyme in here. I'm going to keep the stalks in as well because, you know, it's going to break down and sort of work as a seasoning. So I'm just going to sort of break this down roughly. You can just use the leaves if you want, but I think the stalks have a lot of flavour in herbs, so if you can keep them in, that's great. So we've got that as well. We also have some spring onions. That's just really to sort of add more depth to it. It also adds some really great flavour. Again, I'm just gonna roughly chop this up. I've got some garlic as well, just to, I put garlic in pretty much everything, so you know, we're just gonna go ahead and whack a few cloves in, and we're just gonna literally just crush it. I'm not even going to chop it up because it's going to get mashed up in the pestle and mortar anyway. If I give it a good crush, that's going to help it release all that flavour. We have ginger as well. You know, again, optional, but I think it works really, really nicely. A lot of traditional Jamaican recipes will have ginger in that as well. But I mean, like I said, the main two ingredients you have to have are Scotch bonnet and pimento. Aside from that, you can actually use, you know, a lot of things that you have around you and stuff like that. I mean, with the traditional recipe for jerk chicken, they would have just used whatever was around them. So, you know, to have an authentic recipe, you don't have to worry about having all these ingredients. Just focus on the main two and build around that. So I'm just going to use a spoon to scrape the skin. It's actually quite a simple technique, so we're just going to scrape all that skin off. I'm just going to use the knife to take that top bit off. It doesn't matter if there's still some skin left, that's fine. Just get as much as you can off. I'm just going to get rid of that. Yeah, so we've got some limes and some salt as well. I'm going to put that on right at the end though, because I don't really want to leave it on now. I think the salt and lime is best left right to the last second. So that's what we're going to do. Bring that in here. So we're going to start with our allspice. You know, notice how I haven't really put any measurements, and it's just because you just got to feel these kind of things, you know. It's down to your preference. If you think it's too spicy to put 2 Scotch bonnets, put 1. If you think the seeds are too spicy, just take them out. I'm just going to put a handful. I really like pimento, so I'm going to put quite a bit in. So I've put like, how much is this? 30 grams. I've put about 15 grams of pimento in there. So if you want to be bothered about the measurements of that, use how much you want. But yeah, pimento is essential. It's got like that really rich kind of like clove, nutmeggy kind of flavor, but it's also quite peppery as well. It's a really well-rounded kind of berry, which is really good to use. I'm just going to bash it up. Oops. Make sure you don't let anything. If you don't have pestle and mortar, you can use a food processor. If you don't have that, you can put it underneath a cloth and use a saucepan to just bash it up. There's no excuse really. Even if you can't do that, you can always get pimento powder, which is really good as well. Traditionally, actually, they used to use pimento wood, so the wood from the actual pimento tree or plant. Is it a tree or probably a tree? Yeah, so they would take the wood from the pimento tree and use that to smoke it, and it would just give extra flavour, which is a real shame because obviously we don't really have access to that kind of stuff in the UK. But you know, all the more reason to go and try out proper traditional, you know, jerk chicken. I'll leave a few links to like some black-owned jerk chicken sort of selling restaurants and stuff like that in the description below. Okay, so it's all ground up and it smells absolutely banging. We're just gonna chuck in our ginger, garlic, spring onion, thyme, Scotch bonnet. Cool, just chuck all that in and we're just gonna carefully start bashing that up. So as you can see, it's formed like a sort of rough paste here. I'm just gonna give it a little taste to see how it's like. Wow. It's really good. It's really smoky, strong. It's got like little bits of sweetness that come through from the spring onion as well. It's perfect. I mean, it's exactly what you want. You know, I think, and it's quite simple as well. A lot of people put like unnecessary amount of things in it. I've seen recipes with like pineapple and stuff like that. And you don't need to, you know, do too much. If you want to add a bit of sweetness, I've got, oh my god, so many flies. I've got a little bit of demerara sugar that you can stick inside just to balance out the flavors a little bit. You don't want to put too much in because otherwise it will just burn when it's on the grill. But you can put a little bit if you want to balance out the sweetness. And make sure you wash your hands after this, of course, because otherwise it's gonna sting everywhere. So I'm just gonna slap all of that on. You get some marinades which are more dry, you get some marinades which are more wet. Whatever recipe you follow, even if you don't follow mine, absolutely fine. Just make sure, like I said, it's got those 2 important ingredients in. So I'm just gonna rub that in. What's that? Oh yeah, my mum only eats free-range chicken, and free-range chicken is very expensive. So I bought some like cheaper chicken for everyone. My mum likes to eat the free-range stuff. So yeah, and free-range is better, of course. This is going to marinate for a little bit. Marinate to however long you want. There's going to be lots of flavour in this, and that's what you're looking for. I'm just going to keep this to one side, and then we can move on to the barbecue. Cool. So when it comes to actually barbecuing it, traditionally it's always done over wood. It's a bit more difficult to find it in like the UK and stuff. I know in like America it's very common, obviously, to have that kind of stuff. In the UK, you might find it at some petrol stations and stuff like that, but it can be a bit difficult. You will definitely find kindling though. So what I'm going to do is create a base of kindling, put some charcoal on top, to use that to cook the chicken, sort of halfway to get it crispy, get it nice, get most of the cooking going. Then afterwards I'm going to lower the heat, let the heat die out a little bit. Then we're going to put some pre-soaked wood, which I actually bought online, so you can actually buy this stuff online. You don't have to, you can just spray it with water to create smoke, but it's really good to have wood to get that flavour going. So I've got some apple wood as well. But yeah, let's just get this started and I'll sort of talk it through as it's kind of happening. The one thing about barbecues that a lot of people don't really get is that you need to build your way up. You can't just start with like putting a bunch of sort of coal and lighting it and expect that it's going to go perfect. No, you have to be careful. You got to kind of build it up slowly, and that's how you get proper sort of barbecue going. So I've got some cotton wool. I'm going to dip this in Vaseline. This is a really good way to keep your fire going, burning longer. So you don't have to use cotton wool. You can use fire lighter, but cotton wool is something that and Vaseline are stuff that I know a lot of you guys will just have lying around, kind of thing. So I'm just going to stick just a few underneath that. I don't know if that can be seen. Yeah, it can be seen. So use a lighter. I've got this fancy little thing, and we're just going to catch the whole thing on fire. If it's a windy day, you're chilling. If it's not a windy day, you need to start fanning it with something, which in hindsight I don't have. Can you grab like something that I can fan it with? Even like a bit of cardboard is fine. You're just going to start by blowing on it lightly, and this is going to increase the amount of oxygen. You need oxygen. You know, the three things to have a fire going: you need fuel, you need heat, you need oxygen. So we've got the fuel, which is the wood, which we're then going to switch to charcoal. You've got the heat, which is the fire. Now you need oxygen. Otherwise, if you remove one of those things from the equation, it's just going to not work out. So you need to. And now you can see as the wood starts to get black, that means the wood is catching, and kindling will catch on very quickly. And so what we're going to do is just slowly, without smothering it. If you smother it, you know, it's not going to work out. As you can see, I'm sort of building it like a teepee, like a sort of triangular shape, and we're just going to get this going bit by bit until we have a proper fire that's been built up. It's natural to cry at this point, it always happens, so don't worry about it. You're still a real man or woman if you cry during a little kind of thing. As you can see now, we basically have made a little campfire within our... And you see how much smoke is generated just from this alone, and this is one of the reasons why it's important to understand the history behind jerk chicken. You know, the Maroons wouldn't be able to light a fire like this when their life is under threat, and so it's important that we respect these kind of you know, the history behind cultures. And I think one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is they kind of just try and make food and say, look, I've made jerk chicken, and they've just come out of an oven. And it's like, we have to pay respect to these kind of cultures if we want to, you know, understand and appreciate them a lot more. That makes sense? What were you saying? Appreciate, yeah, that's the right word. Appreciate, not appropriate. That's the most important thing. So now I'm going to switch to this. I'm just going to start fanning it. And the more you fan, the faster your fire is going to burn. So as you can see now, the fire is really starting to pick up. And I'm just waiting, and it's starting to now catch onto the outer pieces of wood. But this fire will burn out very quickly. I mean, the inner pieces of wood are already starting to burn out. So what we're going to have to do now is switch to charcoal. If you have gloves, that's great. I couldn't find mine, so it's cool. I'm just going to start building up pieces of charcoal around, and so that kindling is going to be the base. And often if you've ever had issues with barbecues because you find that, like, you know, the woods, you know, the charcoal's not catching and stuff like that, and it's a bit difficult. Charcoal is a bit difficult to catch fire, but when it does catch fire, it will hold the heat a lot longer. So what I really recommend is that you start with kindling, just as a really sort of simple way to, you know, get that fire going. And that way your charcoal will be able to hold that heat so much easier. What I'm going to do now is just fan it, and this is going to keep the fire going. Often people get dismayed because they feel like, you know, the fire is burning out too quickly, and you know, then they just start pouring a whole load of like fuel and stuff over it. But you don't have to. Just fan it. Even if the fire looks like it's going out, I promise you, if you fan it, it will come back again. 9 times out of 10. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just sort of spread out all these coals quite evenly. It's very hot at the moment, so what I'm going to do is just let it mellow out a little bit. What I don't want is that it burns. You know, there's a lot of sort of, you want to sort of smoke, and to smoke something properly you need about 20 or 30 minutes of constant temperature. So if I were to put it on now, it might just, you know, burn and stuff like that. So I'm going to wait a few minutes. I mean, this is the optimal, if you were starting a normal barbecue, this would be great to start cooking, you know, stuff like red meat and stuff like that on. I'm just going to let it chill out for a little bit, 5 minutes. This has probably got a good 30 minutes of strong heat, so I'm going to give it 5-10 minutes, let it die down a bit, give the chicken some colour, remove it, and then start putting our chips in. And what I've got, yes, wood chips, not like potato chips. So I've got, can you see this properly? Can you see this properly on the thing? Yeah. So I've got these apple sort of wood chunks. They smell really sweet. They kind of smell almost like tea-like. It's going to give it a really nice flavour, but it's also going to give a lot of smoke, because what I've done here is I've soaked them in water for a bit. And by soaking stuff in water, like quite often, like a big rule of like barbecuing and stuff is not to use like fresh wood, because the fresh wood has a lot of moisture in it and it's going to create a lot of smoke. Well, obviously if you're smoking, you need that moisture. So I've taken some apple wood. It's been soaking for a bit, so it's not too wet, but it's got enough moisture that when it goes down, it will create that sort of bit of smoke. And even if it doesn't, you know, you can just put a bit of water on top of it and stuff like that. So it's absolutely fine. So yeah,
100,000.
You're 100% recording this time. Okay. All right. Cool. So what we're gonna do now is just start putting our chicken on top. We're gonna go skin side down. So the skin gets nice and crispy. What's that? Got a visitor. Ah, Slime, you okay? Go ahead. What's up? What's that? What I'm going to do is I'm going to cook this on the skin side so that it gets a little bit crispy. Give it a flip, and then we can stick the marinade on top while we smoke it, and that way, hopefully, it won't burn as much. And of course, we can't forget that free-range chicken. Come on, right there. Okay, so one of the pieces is already kind of like charred. It's getting like some nice golden marks. And so I'm just gonna flip that. Other pieces as well are starting to get nice and gold. If it sticks, leave it. That means it's just doing its thing. Let it get all nice. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is sort of lift the actual grill and start putting the wood underneath it. So I'm just gonna sort of lift it. Now the minute that wood hits it, there we go, it's going to start creating smoke, and so just like that. And so that wet wood is going to create a lot of sort of smoke, and what you're going to do, cover it, completely cover it, and let it cook for like 20-30 minutes, and at a low temperature. This is just going to cook it all the way through, and that's what you want. Oh, I almost forgot. You got to put that leftover marinade just on top. And so we're going to let this cook, well, smoke. This is the most important part. I'm just going to let that chill out for a bit. Okay, so it's been half an hour. I'm going to take this off. See, there's a little few wisps of smoke left, but most of the smoke is pretty much done. It smells really smoky and rich. You know, I think all of the pieces are pretty much cooked. We're just going to take, well, to test it out, take the biggest piece off. So we'll take one big piece. This will be our little tester. Okay. And we have now our salt, and what we're going to do is put our salt on now. Right at the end. Get a little bit of lemon. We're going to cut through this, and if it's totally cooked through, then we're just going to go ahead and that is perfect. And as, I don't know if you can see that, but like there's so much moisture in this, like so much moisture. I'm going to take a little piece off and see how it tastes. It's really, really good. It's like smoky. You get like different bursts of like a little bit of Scotch bonnet coming through. The pimento is covering everything really nicely. The lime just kind of like gives it a nice bit of acidity, and the salt to top it off is so perfect. Like, I really think everyone should try it. Yeah, I'm gonna cut this video short so that we can go and eat it. So please like, subscribe, follow me on socials at slice_YT. Hope you guys learned something, and let me know how it goes. Send me pictures at slice_YT, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything. See you later.